This seems like it's off the beaten path, but here goes. um, Again, we're talking about the kingdom of God. And so we want to talk about the principles of the kingdom of God. But at the same time, this is a very interesting chapter 38. We're going to leave the story of Joseph here for a little while, just for this video, because I want you to see the importance of integrity and not feeling condemned by your missteps, even if other people condemn you. And again, this is for my kids, my brothers and sisters who consider me a teacher. This is my Bible study. Please study to show yourself approved. Condemnation is not of God. And there is only one perfect, and that is God. And we don't understand how everything works. We don't. We can act like we do, but the older I get, the more I understand that the nuances or how things work together for good, I don't get. I'm working harder after retiring from a career now than I ever have, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And in doing so, looking back on my testimony of where I come from and what I've done, I just see a lot of mistakes. For lack of experience, lack of discipline, all kinds of things. I have just missed the mark in a lot of areas. That's the reality. I don't think I'm any different than anyone else, so I'm not beating myself up, and I'm telling my sons and my daughters and those who consider me a teacher not to beat yourself up. You're not going to figure it out for everyone. The only thing, not the only thing, but one big or one important thing I think we need to focus in on is working on our own integrity. I believe God has already worked out what the path is going to be, and for lack of a better way of putting it, I think we just need to get out of the way. Seriously. Just get out of the way. What does that mean? It means allowing things to be what they are. We're going to miss it. And I think the harder you work at not trying to miss it, the more you miss it. And what I mean by that is you can get into this works mentality. In other words, you're working hard at being something or doing something instead of allowing God to bring it to you. I wish I knew when I was younger my job was to study and allow myself to deal with the ups and downs and be emotionally honest with myself. And I didn't learn that until I got into my late 40s and 50s, now going into my 60s here pretty soon. that my job is just to study and allow myself to be. And that just because other people say things and do things doesn't mean that, it makes my thoughts and my actions less important. The only thing I can work on is me. And in doing so, other people are going to work on themselves, even though a lot of people think that they can work on other people and not have to deal with themselves. I don't want you to make those same mistakes in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s. And all depending on who's listening to this, change your mind into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Get over yourself trying to be someone who's fixing everyone else and not dealing with yourself. Working on your own integrity. This story in Genesis chapter 38 is about Judah, a son of Jacob, son of Israel, a king, if you will, with authority, with his own town named after him. This man went through a lot, and a lot of it was because of himself. He made some bad choices. Well, if you look at it, they were the choices that he made, but they weren't aligned with the choices that his father made. He made his own choices. And in doing so, you would think that there was some great punishment, but there wasn't. There was only lived out experiences, which, quite frankly, there was a lot of tragedy. Now, I don't have the whole history of Judah, in the sense where I can tell you, all these great things. I just want to explain to you what happened in Genesis chapter 38. And out of that came Jesus the Christ. From his son, who came from his daughter-in-law. Now, some of you who know the story or understand the story understand that he slept with his daughter-in-law after his son had died. He didn't know at the time it was his daughter-in-law. He thought he was sleeping with a harlot. So the great Judah went to go find comfort from a harlot and ended up sleeping with his daughter-in-law, who he made a promise to, which was to give his younger son to her when he was of age, and he never did. And let me read the story. Interesting story. Genesis chapter 38, verse 1. And it came to pass at that time, and this is the time after they sold their brother to the Midianites, that Judah went down from his brethren and turned in to a certain Adulamite, whose name Hurrah. Now, Hurrah became a great friend of his. This is a Canaanite, I believe, because it was in the land of Canaan. So here we go. We're going into the land of Canaan, and we're starting to worship their gods. Now, some people, now just so you understand, this is Arab land. And this is the reason why I say that you got to be careful about speaking against other people's backgrounds. because the line of Christ came out of this relationship. And Judah, in verse 2, saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name Shua, who he ended up marrying, and took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bare and Onan and Shelah. So he had 3 sons. They were triplets. In verse 6, and Judah took a wife for so this is some years later, his older son. And keep in mind, oftentimes when we're reading the Bible, there are time lapses because these are stories being told. This isn't 1 second after the next second, so sometimes there are days and years that pass amongst these lines. And that's where I think a lot of people get confused, because they read this as though it's some linear story. But I just want you to catch this in your reading and your study, that he conceived and had a son named and she conceived again and had Onan, and she conceived again and had Shelah, Shelah. These are 3 sons. These are 3 boys. And he was in Chesby when she bare him. And that was verse 5. In verse 6 it says, and Judah took a wife for his son, which means there had to be some time. He didn't take a wife for his newborn. Her name was Tamar, and Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, so he died. And then he said to Onan, go unto go unto the wife of So Onan went and slept with her, but he pulled out and spilled his seed because he didn't want to have his brother's. He didn't want to impregnate his brother's wife, and because of that he died. And Shelah, who wasn't of age, verse 11, then Judah to Tamar, which was the daughter-in-law, said, remain a widow at thy father's house till Shelah my son be grown, for he said, lest peradventure he die also, and his brethren, or as his brethren. And Tamar went and dwelled in her father's house, and in the process of time the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. This is tragic. This is tragic. And again, this is over a period of time. He had 3 sons, 2 died, 1 wasn't of age. I think I said triplets. I apologize. They weren't triplets, but they were twins. And then Shelah was the younger one. He wasn't of age. He promised him to Tamar. So Tamar went back to her father's house until he was of age. Because again, keep in mind, this is not just a story of getting married. This is a story of power and authority. I'm not sure I can pull all of this off in one video, but I want to try to. So keep in mind, you're talking about a son of Israel, Judah. When you marry at this time, these are families sharing other families' experiences. So this is the mixing of families. So it wasn't just a matter of her being married, it was a matter of authority, a matter of power. It was also a matter of status. So by him promising Shelah Shelah, he was also promising her these things, that she would be able to have children within this family of status. This was a big deal. Now, with Judah's lack of integrity, he forgot the promise. And Shelah grew up. His son, his youngest son, grew up. And him growing up, he didn't fulfill the promise to Tamar, the Canaanite. And I'm not going to say, I want to say suffer the consequences. He didn't suffer the consequences, but he was dealt with by Tamar. In verse 12 it says, in the process of time the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted and went up unto his sheep shearers in Timnath, he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her and covered her with a veil. In other words, she had held herself over all this period of time as a widow, which means she wasn't open to marry. Verse 15, when Judah saw her, he thought her a harlot because she had a veil over her face, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way and said, go, I pray thee, let me come in unto you, because he thought he was sleeping with a harlot. No commitment. Didn't work out that way. So she said, what wilt thou give me, in verse 16, that you may come unto me? And he says, well, I'll give you a kid of goats, in verse 17. And what shall that pledge me until you bring those goats? And he says, she said, I want your signet ring, your bracelet, and your staff. The seat of his power, in other words. She wanted his status, his name, and his authority. And he gave it to her. And only because I want to make this video one video, I'm kind of cutting to the chase here. So after he did his little duty and impregnated her with 2 children, he left, thinking that he slept with a harlot, not knowing that she was pregnant or not caring. And when he went back to give the kid of goats to her and asked, where's the harlot? They said, there's no harlot here. It was later on that he found out that it was his daughter-in-law who played the harlot. In verse 25, when she brought forth the items that he left with her, she says, by the man who these I with child, and said, discern, I pray thee, whose these, the signet, the bracelet, and the staff. The bracelet is his status, represents status. The signet is his name, and the staff is his authority. And look at what he said in verse 26. And Judah acknowledged and said, she hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. Not that he didn't know her, it's just that he didn't sleep with her again. He had no more children by her. And so she travailed and had 2 children And those children were, and this is where the scarlet, if you ever heard of the scarlet thread was one of the sons who came out first, but his arm was pulled back by the other son, and this was Perez and Zara. Perez is where the lineage of Christ came from, and Zara. And this is where the Arabs came from. The reason why I entitled this Integrity is because, God is going to have his way. And I think the greatest thing, because he was going to kill her because he thought she was a harlot. And I think the thing that I want you to catch most out of this is having your integrity in making your choices. He had to admit, because she had the evidence, that he had that he had slept with his daughter-in-law. But he was at least willing to admit that she had more integrity. She was more righteous in what she did than he was. This is why also I say the grace and mercy of God is all through the Bible, whether it's Old Testament or New. Where some people are, say that the grace and mercy of God is the New Testament. No, the grace and mercy of God runs all the way through the Bible. We as humans are flawed. And anyone holding your flaws against you is not walking according to the kingdom of God. There is none righteous, not one. We need the righteousness of God to fulfill our destinies, to walk in integrity. But we have to own our humanity. Those who walk in judgment of you are giving you the opportunity to walk in love with them. Forgiveness. If these videos, podcasts are helpful to you, please like and share them on whatever platform you're hearing them. And thank you for taking this journey with us in exploring the kingdom of God and ushering in the kingdom of heaven.